What's the good word, everybody? It's your boy DKBxJets here. I got a special guest, Tommy, aka Mafia Sports Report. If you haven't noticed, my man's here. He covers the Buffalo Bills. So I know I've been chatting for a while about trying to get some more coverage for the AFC East specifically. And it always helps to get an actual fan's perspective of kind of what's going on with their team. So what's the good word, Tommy? How are things going on your end?
Good, man. It's been a long off season, bro, and football is right around the corner finally. And I'm ready, man. I'm ready for football to begin. Training camp starts in about 12 days, I believe, or 10 days. So can't wait for that. And I'm ready to get this thing going, man. Football season, like I said, man. 9-11, big game, man, versus the Jets.
Tell me about it. I was surprised we didn't. I was surprised it wasn't going to be the Giants versus the Jets for it, but you can't ask for a bigger game than two potential AFC leaders as a whole in the conference. So I'm all for it. Buffalo Bills is always a good matchup, especially since the talent level across the board has risen for everybody. I almost forgot too that you guys actually. I want to say it's the first Hall of Fame game for the New York Jets. So we're doing training camp this week, actually. So I forgot everybody else is about a week behind us. What's been going on the Bills front for you guys, though, more recently? I know I've seen some things about like Stephon Diggs kind of in and out of camp, at least from the OTA periods. I know Dalvin Cook is still in AFC East, heartthrob for everybody. What's been some of the latest news there?
Dalvin Cook, nothing really brewing that I've heard. Just a little chatter, but nothing. I don't think that's going to happen. And the reason why is that I don't think he wants to step on James Cook, his younger brother. Because if he comes to Buffalo, he's going to be number one, and I think he want to do that to his brother. I would guess so. I don't think he's coming there. Plus the money has to do with it a little bit too. I could see him going to Miami. That's a destination for Dalvin Cook. He's from there. I could definitely see that happen. But Buffalo, I just don't see it happening with Dalvin Cook. DeAndre Hopkins is interesting. He's still floating out there. I would like them to sign DeAndre, but once again, I do not know what DeAndre wants. I don't think anyone knows what DeAndre wants right now as far as money goes. I'm guessing the OBJ type of contract, 13, 14 million a season, but I don't know. I think that's too rich for Buffalo right now. So really nothing really floating as far as free agency goes. But we did pick up some good free agents late. Leonard Floyd was a huge pickup, that's kind of underrated. Really not a lot of people talking about it. A guy that's had 9 sacks over his last 3 years. He's averaging 9 sacks. And he's a guy that could fill in for, Von Miller. While Von Miller is coming back from ACL surgery, so it's no rush to push Von out there week 1. Poona Ford was a huge addition. That's also a late addition that no one's really talking about. Guy that came in and signed for less to come to Buffalo. We had some really good late signings, and then I felt like Buffalo had a quiet, sneakily like good offseason. With the additions, we addressed a lot of the offensive line and defensive line that really gave us fits last year. So I think this is the best offseason for the Buffalo Bills in the McBean era.
Okay. That's a pretty hot take. I know people love kind of what happened definitely during that Stephon Diggs signing period with a lot of the guys they brought on. I think it was him, like Richie Incognito on the line. Some other, I think that was the Von Miller year too, if I'm correct. But yeah, the Buffalo Bills, they've definitely been making a lot more value moves instead of splash plays per se. So I remember seeing the Leonard Floyd signing and thinking that's going to be a steal because Leonard Floyd seemed like he kind of turned things around after he was able to go, I want to say it was to the Rams. And ever since he's kind of been on an uptick. So it was definitely a buy low, sell high type situation with him. Should be a really strong move, especially with the revamped pass rush that you guys have going on. You mentioned the Poona Ford signing, trying to shore up the run defense, which has caused some issues in like periods of time. I don't think it's been a full season this year. Definitely for a couple weeks of stretches, seems like things get blown up a little bit. Can't get the ball in Josh Allen's hands enough with the time of possession battles being lost. So I feel it. Kind of where are you at in terms of kind of ranking the AFC East order? From my side of things, I definitely still have you guys on the top, just by virtue of recency bias. You guys obviously have been claiming the division since Tom Brady left, but definitely still feels like you guys are the team to beat. But I think things are evening out a little bit more. So where are you at with it?
Yeah, so as of right now, I think every team in the AFC East took a step forward in the offseason. I think the Jets obviously took the biggest step forward because getting a quarterback that's obviously reliable. Listen, I gotta be honest with you. I think your GM Douglas has done a phenomenal job. I think the coach Saleh has done really well, and the drafting has been great. But the one draft pick that you kind of messed up on is the most important one, which is the quarterback. But signing Aaron Rodgers maybe makes up for that. But who's to say? I don't know. He is getting older. He didn't look too hot last year. Now, granted, he didn't have the greatest team to work with. But it's going to be interesting. But that is a major addition for you guys. I think the Dolphins improved. They got more speed. They're already crazy speed last year. They just added even more. If they do wind up getting Dalvin Cook, that's even more of an issue. But their biggest question mark once again is quarterback. Can Tua stay healthy? He hasn't really proven that throughout a whole season. We'll see what happens with that. The Patriots, listen, I don't think the Patriots massively improved this offseason, but they're the Patriots, and they're always going to play teams tough. They always do. As long as they got Belichick, they're going to give you a tough matchup. But I still think, yes, the Buffalo Bills are still top dog until a team can prove otherwise. Just like when we all were chasing the Patriots back in the day, and every single year, the Bills, the Dolphins, the Jets were all chasing the Patriots, and we all going into this season had high hopes, and then the Patriots just shut everybody up. So I kind of feel like right now the Buffalo Bills are the kings of the East until somebody knocks us off the seat, right? And I just feel like we did enough in the offseason as well, as far as defensively, to kind of match up with what the Jets and the Dolphins did offensively. So, but if I were to guess right now how the division is going to go, I think the Bills are going to win the East. I think the Dolphins and the Jets are going to be battling that second spot. And I think the Patriots I don't think Mac Jones is the answer there. I think they're still fishing for a quarterback. And unfortunately, they're probably going to be last in the division. I just don't think they did enough to make that step past the Jets or the Dolphins. So, but yeah, man, I like what you guys are doing. No doubt. I think you guys are defensively. Are you young? You got some studs there. Your corners are studs. Your defensive line is legit. And, really the question mark is, can Aaron Rodgers be the Aaron Rodgers of old? Well, not last season, the season before when he was MVP. Can you get that Aaron Rodgers? He's with a new coach. Y'all know how Aaron Rodgers is when it comes to new coaches. It can be dicey at times, right? If things aren't going well. So that's interesting to me. And also your receivers, Wilson's a really, really good receiver. But outside of that, now I know you got McCole Hardman. That's a good pickup. But then you got some veteran receivers too. Cobb, I don't know if he'll make the team or not. Lazard is okay. So we'll see. I'm very interested to see your offense under Aaron Rodgers this season. And I'm interested to see when things don't go so well, how Aaron Rodgers reacts to Saleh. Because Saleh's a little bit fiery coach, and yes, Rodgers is a fiery quarterback. So I'm very curious how that works out. And also the Jets media. You're in New York now. It's not Green Bay. Things can go south real quick if things don't go well, somewhere during the season. So that is interesting. Your team is very interesting. And now you're on Hard Knocks, by the way. So another interesting factor for the Jets.
Yeah. This is the season to try to throw everything on us, I guess. Super Bowl hopefuls, AFC East contenders, Hard Knocks. They've definitely made some big storylines even prior to Hard Knocks about what Aaron Rodgers is going to do with the team. How is he going to connect with not only the media, but New York itself and all these big personalities? And I don't know. It's definitely a storyline of them trying to, like, I guess, build the pressure up for him. I think from that standpoint, like the on-field product, even with some of the, I guess, lack of performance, at least from what he's historically shown, is still an excellent season for most of the quarterbacks in our own division alone. So, you know, we'll kind of see how that ends up panning out. Tough schedule for us. I know I was able to take a look at your guys' too. It's not like you guys got a cakewalk by any means. So
they got a rough schedule. The East is a rough schedule in general. And then we all play each other twice, which is rough, you know, but yeah, it ain't easy. And then one of our home games is in London this year, which kind of takes away the home game. You know what I mean? So, but hey, can't complain, man. Listen, man, it's the NFL, right? You know, if you're as good as you say you're going to be or want to be, you got to beat the best, right? So it is what it is, man.
Yeah, I mean, Patrick Mahomes is a beast of another kind, but I mean, they've had some pretty wild cards thrown at them themselves, and you know, you either have the quarterback or you don't. I think you guys obviously have one with Josh Allen. I know people kind of been. I know there's been. It seems like his stock is going down from like maybe the media perspective of things, which I don't think is shared among people that are actually watching the sport. But how's the elbow stuff coming? I know he had the UCL injury that was impacting him for like most of the season. I want to say I saw that they were being cautious with him, not necessarily throwing a ton and stuff like that during OTAs. So is that an issue that's going to bleed into like the early parts of the season, you think, or?
Nah, he's fine. The UCL thing, it wasn't like the Purdy thing. It wasn't as bad. So Brock Purdy actually had surgery. Josh Allen's was more of he had to like just kind of take a break for a little while. And it wasn't in the season when he actually got it versus you guys. He actually played the following week.
Right.
So, you know, not saying it didn't hurt. He was in pain the whole rest of the season. He did have to change his mechanics up a little bit. That's kind of why his numbers were a little bit down there towards the tail end of the season. He did start feeling better time in the playoffs. You could kind of see that in the Dolphins game. But yeah, he definitely wasn't the same during the regular season after that game. But yeah, no, he's fine with the UCL. He just needed time to just basically just not be throwing that much. No surgery required, nothing like that. But yeah, man, listen, I gotta say too, a lot of people, media, written the Bills off. This happens a lot. The Chiefs got written off the year they won a Super Bowl, like a few years back. It happens. National media, I don't hear all that. Last year we were considered Super Bowl, favorites, and we didn't even go to the Super Bowl. So like, I'm glad that we're, underdogs again. I'm glad people aren't picking us. Kind of takes that heat off us, the eyes off us. But Josh is one of the best out there. I don't care what anyone says. He is our offense. He runs, he passes, he does it all. He leaves everything out there on the field. It's exactly what you want in your quarterback. So, no, man. Like I said, man, they could write us off. It doesn't, it doesn't matter for us. We got the same. What I like about this team, man, is how they built it. Got a lot of guys returning that want to stay in Buffalo. Took less to stay in Buffalo. You got the same coaching staff pretty much. Now, last year, I got to say too, man, I'm not into excuses, but I don't think any team last year had a more difficult season than the Buffalo Bills as far as going back to offseason, what happened in Buffalo, what happened with, the owner's wife, then what happened to injuries, then Josh Allen, Von Miller, the DeMar Hamlin situation, snowed, had to play 3 games in 10 days. Like a lot happened that I don't think a lot of teams could have overcame. And, it's not an excuse, but man, if there's one that could be given, and I would say the Buffalo Bills had probably the roughest go last season, and we still wound up 13-3. So, it's funny. Like I said, man, like during last season, I remember there was a part when we lost like 2 in a row and people were like writing us off then. Yeah. Right. And it's like, we went on this massive, we wound up being 13-3. And the next team was the Dolphins at 9 wins. So we just crushed the East. So it's like, it's how it works, man. It's the national media. They want to take stories and run with it. The Stephon Diggs story is interesting. I won't lie. I was a little heated with it. I didn't think he handled it right. I also don't think Buffalo ownership handled it right. Not ownership, but GM. I didn't think Bean or McDermott handled it right. I think they should have had that conversation way before camp started. And, you saw what happens, and I think the players, especially Diggs, is starting to question where we're going, like leadership, meaning coaching. And I think he's getting frustrated. It had nothing to do with Josh. I think it's more so, can McDermott lead this team to a Super Bowl, or has he hit a wall? Like, what is your plans? Because these guys aren't getting any younger, right? You got Josh Allen in his prime of his career. You got Stephon Diggs in prime of his career. They don't want to be somewhere where the direction is just not going anywhere, right? So I think that's where Stephon Diggs was getting frustrated year after year, getting sent home, no Super Bowl. And I think it was just bad timing. Minicamp started, and I think they got into a little heated argument. And and I think he got sent home, and I think McDermott said something he shouldn't have. And but once again, I just don't. I felt like nobody handled that right. I don't think Diggs did. I don't think McDermott or Bean did. But they got it cleared up supposedly, and we'll go. I mean, he once again, it ain't about money. I think it's about what the direction is. Like, can this coaching staff, get us to the next level? And we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, it's not. I can see his standpoint of things where it's like I do think you're on the right track. Most of his focus is more so we need to get over the hump. We're getting to the championship game. Back-to-back years, we're getting sent back home by the same team back-to-back years. And it's not like you guys were getting blown out by the Chiefs or something like that. We're talking like close games, one or two mistakes away from some things happening. And at least from what I recall, I could be off here, but I remember a lot of the issues being that like the run game couldn't get going. Josh Allen was taking a bunch of hits. So that was wearing on them during the games. And then, of course, no matter how elite your defense is, if they have to stay out there a ton, there's bound to be at least one huge player, something that kind of shakes up the rhythm for things. So it just wasn't a good formula for how things were going. It seemed like Sean McDermott maybe didn't have an alternative game plan that was going to work out well for him. The life of a coach, it is what it is. But I mean, as far as I'm concerned, still, like you mentioned, a 13-3 team, there's a lot of drama that was going on last season. I forgot myself until you said it. I do remember the snow issue, and you guys did have like 3 or 4 games, no real stadium. It took the NFL forever to kind of really figure out like where are we going to go with things. There was definitely a lot to it. But I will say definitely a strong offseason like we were mentioning, right? So kind of diving into pieces of the roster a little bit for you guys. Mm-hmm. How did you feel about how the draft went for you guys? I know you kicked things off with a banger, Dalton King.
So initially, because I went live for the draft, and I do this every year, by the way, and then I have to like settle down, go watch the film on these guys, and then I either change my mind or I stick to my guns. And at first, I was pissed, man. I did not like the pick at first. Because I was sold on Torrance. Like I was saying it for months, that the Buffalo Bills needed to address the offensive line. And it's funny, you mentioned the running game. And the one thing Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott have not done well since joining us, and they've done a lot of things really, really well. And I give them a lot of credit for everything done, but they haven't really addressed the O-line, right? They've put Band-Aids on the O-line, and last year you saw the bleeding, right? Like it was out of control. Like the O-line was a hot mess. Josh Allen was getting hit from all angles. The running game can't get going if you can't run block, right? So it was kind of all on Josh, right? And Josh had to improvise and get out of crazy situations, make things happen, go through, it was just a wild, hot mess. If you can't protect your quarterback, you can't run block, you're just not gonna win this league. So I felt like going into this off season that the Bills needed to address the O-line. specifically, and they needed to get younger offensive linemen. Stop going after these 1 year aging Roger Saffolds, who, just don't have it anymore. And it showed last year. Saffold, listen, Saffold used to be a beast, but he wasn't last year, and he hasn't even been signed. So I just think he lost that part of his game. He's older. It happens. So the Bills went out. First of all, they got free agency. They got McGovern, who is younger, played in Dallas. He has a lot of upside. David Edwards from the Rams. He's a good pickup. Brandon Shell, who was right tackle last year for the Dolphins, was a really good pickup. He could compete with Spencer Brown as a younger right tackle. Then the draft came, and I'm like, I still need more. I need O'Cyrus Torrence, because that dude, if you see him on film, he is an absolute dog. He is a beast of a man. Like, when that dude gets you, you ain't going past O'Cyrus Torrence. He gave up no sacks in college. Unbelievable run blocker. And I was all sold. And a lot of people are like, nah, they ain't going to draft him. I'm like, they got it. So they went Kincaid. And I was like, what the? I was heated, bro. I couldn't believe it. But then Torrance dropped. Yeah. And it was just, and then I was like, okay, I'm cool with the first pick now. All right. So then we got Dorian Williams, and that was another player. I was like, I didn't like the pick, but then later on, watching his film, understanding how Sean McDermott's, because remember, Sean McDermott's calling defensive plays this year. Right. He likes a faster type linebacker who's a smaller type linebacker with speed. So it's actually perfect player for McDermott. So I felt like the draft was good. I really liked the draft. Even Justin Shorter later on in the rounds is an interesting player out of Florida. But no, definitely. And thing with Dalton Kincaid is he's more like a receiver. He's going to be on this team. He's going to be more of like a slot tight end. So I don't want to even really call him a tight end per se, because we all know his blocking isn't the best, but he's probably the best, sure-handed catcher coming out of the draft. That dude is legit. And it's going to be interesting to see how fast he can adapt to this offense style of play under Ken Dorsey. And if him and Allen can get a connection going early. And because they needed, the thing is, if you remember last year, I think the Bills ran into a problem. And the problem was Stephon Diggs was the man, no problem. But after that, Gabe Davis, who's going to be our number 2, who I still believe in, had a little rough season for his first time at number 2. I didn't think it was terrible like a lot of people think. He still had a little over 800 yards. He did get hurt, but he had the case of the drops, so it wasn't the greatest season, but I didn't think it was the worst. And then you had a lot of guys that just didn't step up. Isaiah McKenzie, Crowder got hurt for the rest of the season. He was out. And nobody really had the answer. It was so bad we had to go get John Brown, who hasn't played in football in like 3 years, 4 years. Got to get Cole Beasley out of retirement. So kind of saw we were struggling there with receivers to get that help for Diggs late in the season. And that was no one really talks about that either. So this offseason, we picked up Trent Sherfield, who I think is going to be really good. He had a good season last year with the Dolphins, younger player. And he's a speedster. You got Deontay Hardy, who, when healthy, can be electric, and he's super fast. He played for New Orleans. I like that pickup as well for Josh. And then Dalton Kincaid, if he can come around and catch on to this offense, can be that security blanket that Josh Allen needed that he didn't have last year. See, when Cole Beasley was here the year before, that was always Josh's security blanket. Things got out of, Cole's there. Cole can get you out of the mess. And we didn't have that last year. So we're hoping that Dalton Kincaid could be that guy. And so I like the draft. I like that we got help for Josh on all aspects, offensive line and help on offense.
Yeah, the first 2 picks were huge. I definitely remember when it got within like 3 picks and I seen Torrance still on the board. I know, I was like, if they miss this, I don't know if many fans are sticking around at this point, because as you mentioned, in short, there was definitely still some holes, particularly on the interior, I think, on the offensive line. And so to wait to address that, because I know you guys doubled down and you got another guard, Nick Broker, I want to say end of the 7th. Trying to make sure you have a fail-safe option in there as well is always great. But Yeah, it was a massive steal. I just remember thinking back and looking like I kind of just hope they screw up this draft because successful season or not, it'd be nice
Right.
to not have to worry about the Bills season in and season out. But yeah, he's going to be a beast on the inside. He's a monster. Yeah, he was a guy that I remember he was like slotted for the most part of the draft off season in like the top 16 picks. So
yeah, which was surprising that he fell. I honestly, I was when we were up for our pick and we moved up. I think we went up to 23rd to pick up Dalton Kincaid. I thought for sure they were picking up Torrance at that time because I'm like, because a lot of people had him as the best guard coming out of the draft. They had him as a possibly top 15 around there. And I said, oh, it has to be him. I mean, we need to address that position. And then Dalton Kincaid. And I said, what? But you got to think about it. The Bills got potentially 2 top 15 players. And for sure, some people had Kincaid as a top 10. So I felt like, man, we got 2 steals early on, and then the rest of the draft, you know how that goes. So yeah, I thought this was a good draft. I would say it was like I think I graded it initially a B-, but then after everything, I would say B+ as far as, what we got. We covered a lot of areas that we needed, which is good because prior drafts, I kind of felt like Brandon Beane was more about not need and more just best player on the board. And it sometimes that works, but I felt like, man, when you really need like offensive line help and defensive line help, skipping that to go somewhere else. It's just like the back-to-back edge rusher. I didn't like the one year when we went Rousseau and Boogie Basham, and Basham has not. He's one of those guys who's on the probably bubble this year or trade bait. You could have got somebody else at that time for a second round pick. So he's made some mistakes for sure. And I felt like this year he finally kind of like went with need instead of just best available.
Yeah. It's you can't go into the same draft, year in and year out with the same strategy. I know a lot of people love those cliche terms and everything, but like realistically, you got to build out a strong 53-man roster, and you can't. You're not going to go edge 7 times in the draft just because that's always the best player available. Like that's
right,
for sure.
Right.
So where do you see kind of improvements all the way around with the team? It's kind of been interesting watching Buffalo because I know from afar before I dived into them, it felt like you guys were more of an offensive team, a strong defense. People wouldn't say elite, but I definitely still think, you guys are probably somewhere in that top 10 to 15 range in both areas. So do you see a step back from any particular unit, or do you guys think you're kind of...
No, I don't see a step back. I mean, I think we improved almost every position. I will say realistically, the only position that has me maybe a question mark, I would say, going into the season would be the wide receiver group. Stephon Diggs, besides Diggs, we all know Diggs is top 5-ish, top 10-ish receiver. But outside of Diggs, they're all question marks, right? Can Gabe Davis bounce back, from last season, have a better season, be effective? Now, mind you, he's on a contract year as well. So he's going to want to ball out. You're going to see probably the best of Gabe Davis this season because he's on a contract year. But can he prove it, right? That's a question mark. Then you got, now who's our third, right? You got Khalil Shakir, who I really like. I feel like he has potential, but let's be real. It's a second year, right? We don't know yet. Trent Sherfield, I like what I saw last year, but that was his first good year as a pro. So can he continue where he left off in Miami? We'll see. And then you got Deontay Hardy, who is electric, but once again, injury history. So got a lot of question marks in that group. And then I would say the other question mark is the running back group. I like the Damian Harris pickup, but once again, injury history, right? It's followed him through his career. When healthy, good man, really good running back. And actually, the one thing the Buffalo's been struggling is short yardage runs, right? We've always had Josh do it because we couldn't rely on our running backs. We've always had smaller backs. Damian Harris can get those short yards, but man, it's like he just can't stay healthy. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But those will probably be my 2 question marks. Everywhere else, I feel like we upgraded or got a lot of depth. And yeah, so we'll see. That's kind of reason why I wanted DeAndre Hopkins so bad, because you get D-Hop, he's our 2. And then Gabe Davis can definitely be a 3. Like, Gabe Davis right now is borderline 2 and 3 as it is. But he's on a contract year. So you get D-Hop, you sign him for 2 years. You don't have to worry about your number 2 for the next 2 seasons. You can find that in the draft. And then you can just let Gabe walk off, sign somewhere else. You're not have to worry about that, or give him an extension and maybe he can learn from D-Hop. But I don't think it's going to happen. I'm realistic, and it just seems like he wants the money, and it is what it is. So yeah, that I would say every position we upgraded or got good depth, except I would say the receiver room, even though we added pieces, is still a question mark, because none of those guys have like a D-Hop type of career so far, right? They're all question marks, going into this season. So yeah,
for sure. Yeah, I thought for me, I thought running back was going to end up being like a sneaky high priority for you guys, because the thought process was Josh Allen has been a significant portion of the offense, and at some point he's only 27, but you want to start trying to lessen the blows with him. A lot of the RPOs that are going on, or just when plays are breaking down, he's going out there and he's not necessarily sliding as much as other running quarterbacks I see. He'll definitely try to go for the extra yardage whenever he can. So I remember seeing a lot of the mocks with what was the kid out of? It wasn't Clemson, was it? But the kid that got picked up by the Falcons. So I know like the top 2 to 3 running backs from mock to you guys quite a bit. I thought you guys still might go out there and get a sneaky signing. I do like Latavius Murray a lot.
He's interesting. He is interesting. He's an older vet, and I think it's going to boil down to Murray and Harris and in training camp and preseason. Because Murray, you got to remember too, we got Nyheim Hines, who's actually a burner as well, but he's not a big back, right? And you need that. The thing with the Bills is they haven't had that short yardage back, and James Cook isn't that short yardage back, right? So Murray can be, but he's just up there in age, right? But he hasn't been bad either. But Harris would be the ideal guy. Murray will probably be the guy out, depending on who could stay healthy, right? Murray's relatively been pretty healthy. It's Harris that's had the issue. So that's where I worry, because if you cut Murray and then you get with Harris and Harris winds up getting hurt some point of the season, then you're in trouble. Then you're right back to searching for a running back out there in the free agent market, and who's out there. You know what I mean at that point. So yeah, it's dicey when it comes to the running back room. I got to be honest with you.
For sure. So kind of considering matchups, right? I think we went even last year, right? 1-1. Where do you see some of the X factor matchups between our teams when we link up this season?
Well, week 1's very interesting, right? Week 1 in New Jersey against the New Jersey Jets now. we like
a lot of a lot of people it kills me, because we be saying we have some hardcore fans, and a lot of people surprise me that they don't know we play in New Jersey. Crazy.
So, yeah, it is what it is. But I will say this too: the regular season, sometimes we beating the Chiefs in the regular season, and playoffs is totally different, right? Like, it doesn't always mean anything. You got to remember too, you're playing a team in the East. When you play each other twice, you really, every single season you start to really get to know that team very well. And the games are closer. They are. It doesn't, they're going to be close games for the most part. Dolphins played us tough last year. They won one game against us as well in Miami. The Jets beat us, as you can remember. And then we came back and beat you guys, which was a hell of a game. That was Mike White playing. That was a crazy game. But this year, yeah, interesting. I am. The matchup's going to be, I got to say too, our defense is going to be a little bit aggressive this year under McDermott. McDermott's more of an aggressive style defensive coordinator than Frazier. Frazier is more of a soft, kind of a nickel, defensive head coach. And it worked in the regular season. We've always played pretty well. But his problems is the playoffs. Like, he didn't adjust very well. against offenses, and by that time, they were prepared for our defense, and it just didn't work out under Frazier. And I think that's why it was kind of a mutual breakup, though they won't say that, but I believe it was. So yeah, I think that it's going to be interesting to see how your O-line can go against our D-line, because we're going to bring more pressure than what we did in prior seasons. So let's see. And Aaron Rodgers isn't Mr. Mobile, so I'm not saying he's a pure pocket passer, but he's getting older. He's had that calf thing bugging him, I know, last season and this early on in the offseason or whatever workouts he had. So going to be interesting to see how he handles the pressure early on with Floyd and Rousseau. But yeah. And then also your running back, I'm not sure. He says he'll be ready week 1. He was an absolute dog. By the way, I had no idea he was going to be that good. I did not want to draft him. He was. A lot of people were mentioning him last year, and I was like, no, don't draft him. And I was wrong. I'll eat crow when I'm wrong about a player, and I was wrong on him. He was an absolute dog for you guys. So yeah, it's gonna be. I would say your offensive line, our defensive line is going to be a really interesting matchup week 1 to see how you guys protect Aaron Rodgers. And our offense, obviously, our receivers against your DBs is going to be interesting. It's going to say a lot about our 2s and 3s week 1. I'll be honest with you, because you guys have really good young DBs. So we're going to see real quick how Trent Sherfield, Khalil Shakir, Gabe Davis step up week 1 against a really good unit.
Yeah, I think that was it was one of the positions for sure I had the most respect for in our unit, especially considering how easy it is for the cornerbacks to get burned. And, we had terrible safety play last year to top it off. So I thought that was going to be the biggest thing that maybe kept us close. I didn't think we were necessarily going to win after seeing some of those early Zach Wilson, Joe Flacco, Mike White performances. But I figured we get kept in the game if you guys moved away from the run and tried to lean on the receivers a bit more. Mm-hmm. If Sauce Gardner can limit Stephon Diggs, there wasn't going to be another strong option if Gabe Davis couldn't. He was a huge big play threat for sure. We've had plenty of fast receivers and track guys and stuff that had came in before the Jets know all about this with some of the guys we used to pick. And so to still put up 800 plus yards, a handful of touchdowns and stuff, I thought it was still good. For sure. If he does move down to a 3 for you guys, that's going to be a problem for a lot of NFL defenses. I imagine people don't have a lot of strong nickel options right now, but definitely the cornerbacks. I know the biggest question on our minds is if they can play to the same level and consistency that we saw last year. A lot of us felt like we had 2 All-Pros between the 2 of them for sure. And then I would definitely probably say Dalton Kincaid is the one thing that concerns me for sure. I think he's going to end up walking in there as like a starter. I know, Dawson Knox is kind of the guys for you right now, but he brings a different level of athleticism, and the way I've seen him eat up coverage, especially when guys move to zone, which is where we usually play outside of third down and, fourth in short situations. Our linebackers haven't been the best out of those screen games and covering running backs and stuff like that. So I do have a lot of question marks about if you guys end up moving into like more 2 tight end packages. If in fact Kincaid does get used more as like a receiver and they're putting him out there in the slot, especially since our guy's a little bit smaller. I think you guys did some tricky stuff last year too. In terms of using Stephon Diggs on the left side, where we usually have, why am I drawing a blank on his name? DJ Reed for us, which opened up a lot of things. And then, of course, we had Sauce Gardner walk down and cover a tight end or something like that a handful of times. So it's definitely a lot of little hidden matchups. I think more so on the depth side. I think the starter's a little bit more obvious, but I am curious to see how things happen there, especially with the defense, as you mentioned, with Sean McDermott calling up things this time. So from like his attacking mentality, are we talking more about like blitz plays per se? Or
more quarterback pressures, bringing the heat more a little bit. He's more of an aggressive style coach than Frazier was. So you will see more disguised blitzes from the linebackers. That's probably why he drafted Dorian Williams, a little bit different than obviously Tremaine Edmonds, who was a listen. By the way, I don't think Edmonds was used right in Buffalo. I think Edmonds is a freak. I'm very curious how he's going to be used in Chicago. I could see him lining up at the edge. We never did that ever. I just think whenever we did bring the blitz with Edmonds and Milano, they usually got home or really were disruptive, and we just didn't do it a lot. I think under McDermott, you'll see a little bit more disguised blitzes from the linebackers than years past. So yeah, I just I'm very curious how this goes under McDermott. It's going to be first year. It's a lot of pressure on him, but he wanted it. He got it. He's going to do it. And by the way, too, I want to mention too, Trey White last year didn't come back till like week, I don't know, 13 or something crazy like that. And he wasn't the same last year because he was still kind of getting his way back. And you got to remember too, last year, when we weren't without him, we had a lot of young guys. That Dane Jackson, 7th round pick a few years back, starting his place. He had Kyer Elam, Christian Benford, rookies. So we had a really young group of guys out there. So this coming up season, you got Trey coming back healthy. That's going to be make a big difference. You got Kyer coming off a second year. You got Benford, who was pretty good for a 6th round player last year. And then you got Dane Jackson. And then we got a guy from Minnesota who's a really good pickup, Dantzler, who was really good in Minnesota at one time, but then he had a little falling out with the coaching staff. I thought that was a sneaky pickup. I also want to mention Taylor Rapp, who is a safety linebacker hybrid kind of player. Really underrated, really good player, aggressive, likes to go down in the box, get after the quarterback. I also want to mention last year we lost Micah Hyde week 2. Huge loss for the defense. A lot of people don't talk about that either. So he's coming back. Jordan Poyer also played hurt all last season. He's coming back healthy. We re-signed him. So you got the best safety duo, in my opinion, coming back healthy. And you got Taylor Rapp, who's really good backup, a guy that can also fill in at linebacker. So I feel like the defense is really taking a step forward. A lot of young guys also that are coming up. Gregory Rousseau is only getting better. Another guy that's a raw type of freak edge rusher. You saw last season he got up to 8 sacks. So he's really getting up there. And that's a guy I would say watch out for.
Didn't you guys grab what was his name? Shane Ray?
Shane Ray as well. So Shane Ray is former 1st round pick, had a really good sophomore year in Denver. First 2 years was pretty damn good. Then he had I believe it was a wrist injury, and it just kept getting, it kept getting worse and worse and worse. He wound up retiring or not playing football for a while, has been out of the league for a year. So he's an interesting, I would say he's on the he's on the bubble for me because he has a lot to prove. He's been out of the league a long time, and you got he's going against, you got to remember, he's going against guys that have been on this team a while. You got AJ Epinesa, who is a 2nd round pick. You got Boogie Basham, who's a 2nd round pick. You got Shaq Lawson, who had a pretty good season last year for the Bills. All right. And then you got Shane Ray, right? And there's another guy I'm forgetting who actually was a pretty good player for us last year too. So he has an uphill battle, man. I got to be honest with you, to make this team. He's going to really have to show out in camp and preseason to get one of those guys cut, like a Boogie Basham or an AJ Epinesa, or traded to make the team. I gotta be real with you. I like it. It'll be a great story, but man, it's an uphill battle. It's been a long time since he played football in the NFL. Like I said, and it's a new team, new defensive scheme. How much playing time will he get, like in preseason, to prove his worth? You know what I mean? Like that's another thing too. So interesting. I gotta say, this preseason, this training camp is going to be interesting because I feel like we have a lot of depth, but everyone can't make the team.
Yeah, no doubt. I want to touch on that in a second. I know we kind of addressed this one as well. There's a question they asked about outside of running back. Do you feel like you have any areas that you're legitimately worried about?
The receiver room. I said that may be my biggest question mark. Right tackle's interesting. I know a lot of people are rough on Spencer Brown at right tackle. I'm not. I feel like he's one of those players again. Once again, he's just had a string of bad luck. 3rd round pick. He was raw when we drafted him. He wasn't supposed to start when we got him. Last year, he had back surgery. He missed all OTAs, all training camp, all preseason. And then, boom, we started him week 1. So he's a little bit rusty. He didn't get to work with Aaron Cromer, who was our offensive line coach. We just brought him in last year. So I feel like this year he has a whole offseason now to show his worth. And if he can't, then you got Brandon Shell to fill in, who did a really good job in Miami. So, but I still a little concerned about the right tackle spot, you know. But no, I would say wide receiver and running back is my main concern going into 2023. Those are the 2 spots. Every other position, I think we have really good depth and good players.
Yeah, that's not bad. If you only got 2 positions to be worried about legitimately, and I know you guys ended up picking up an underrated favorite from the Jets, Brandon Shell. You think he has a legit chance to go in there and kind of compete for a starting spot?
Well, yeah, I think right now, number 1 spot, I think Spencer Brown is going into the season as 1. Like, you know, if right now you were to, you know, say who would be starting week 1, it'd probably be Spencer Brown. But yeah, listen, man, if Spencer Brown can't stay healthy, right? He can't stay healthy, or he keeps getting beat by faster edge rushers, because that was his deal last year. He cannot. Edge rushers who had a little bit of speed would just go right past him. That was his major problem. And I don't know if that was because of the back thing and him coming, you know, didn't really get a good training because he had no training camp. We'll see. But no, I you know, listen, they're still going to have a competition. I don't think it's like, you know, hey, he's automatically starter, but I think he will win that job. I think he'll win that right tackle spot. But Brandon Shell's a good guy to have in the wing, right? In case it doesn't work out or he gets hurt. He's a perfect guy. That's why, offensive line is so important to have depth. And we did not have that last year. And we were playing musical chairs at offensive line. And I hate that. Like, that's one position you do not want to worry about is offensive line. And we just never had good depth going into any season. Deion Dawkins has never had a guy next to him more than 1 season. Like, it's always a guy that's in and out. So hopefully McGovern, who signed a 3-year deal, can be that guy, can stay next to him. You know, because I would say the best Deion Dawkins has ever played, and he's a really good player, but the best you've ever seen him was when he had guys that actually had good seasons next to him, which was, I would say, Richie Incognito, his first year in Buffalo, when we drafted him, and when we had Quentin Spain, his first year with us. Quentin Spain was a dog. I don't know what happened to him after that, but yeah. And then after that, it's kind of like, you know, they're like a unit, man. One guy messes up, it just falls all apart, man. So I'm hoping this year, man, that unit can stay together, can stay healthy for a whole season, at least the majority of it, and protect Josh, because last year, man, you saw it. I mean, if you guys watch Buffalo Bills football or whatever, your team's playing against us, you saw the pressure and the offensive line just totally break down. And it's just, you don't want your quarterback back there just fighting for his life, right, to get out of the way. So it was bad. So we'll see.
100%. So kind of, I guess wrapping some things here up on my end, schedule wise for you. What do you guys think are some of the more interesting games on your schedule? And you have a record prediction?
Yeah. So let me pull up the schedule real quick again, see the exact order, because I know we play the Jets week 1. I know we play. Okay, so we got. Let's see here. So I don't make a mistake here. Okay, so we got the Jets, obviously. Then we got the Raiders at Bills. I don't think I think the Raiders are one of those teams that I'm not concerned about the Raiders. The Commanders, I'm not worried about the Commanders. The Dolphins at Bills, October 1st. This time, finally around, they're coming to Buffalo first. So we played Miami this time late in the year, which is good. It's not going to be so hot in Miami. The Jacksonville game could be a sneaky game in London. Jacksonville's getting better. Their quarterbacks, he's taken a big step forward last year. They're building, and I think they got their receiver coming back from the guy that played in Atlanta. I forget.
The gambling.
Yeah, the gambler guy.
Yeah, I'll get your name in a minute.
Yeah, I forget his name, but he's really good player. He's coming back. They could be a dangerous team. They're a sneaky dangerous team, and you got to remember too. We played Jacksonville a few years back, and they spanked us, man. Their defense can, Josh Allen over there. Their Josh Allen is a good player, man, and they got other good players on the defensive side of the ball too. And then, so in the beginning, I would say our schedule's not too brutal. You got the Giants game at Bills. I believe we could beat them. That's not a problem. Bills at Patriots. I don't see that being a problem. Buccaneers at Bills. Buccaneers now are not what they were. Then you got the Bills and the Bengals. That's a tough one. November 5th. Broncos at Bills. Once again, interesting, but I think we are a better team. Then the Jets again at the Bills. That's going to be a tough one. And here's where it gets tough. Here's a stretch for us, at least. So you got the Jets and the Bills. That's tough. You got the Bills and Eagles. Tough. At Eagles. You got the Bills at Chiefs. Tough. Cowboys at Bills. It's not. They're a tough team. Bills at Chargers. Chargers are weird, so I don't know how to go. And then Patriots, and then at the Dolphins. So you got a little rough stretch there down on the end. Predicting so tough. I got to say, last year was my first year I ever predicted us going undefeated because it was the homer in me, and I never do that. But God, I'm gonna say realistically, I'll say we lose 3 games. I'm gonna go 14-3. I think down that stretch there's gonna be some games where we lose. I think the Chiefs game, the Bengals games is going to be really, really tough. That lineup there on the road, because you got to remember, at Eagles, at Chiefs, so Super Bowl teams right there, back to back, and then you got Cowboys. Yeah, that's a rough stretch, man. At the Bengals, I mean, we're playing at all these guys' homes, man. At the Bengals, all these teams that were really good last year. So. Yeah, man. Getting 1-2 wins out of those would be great, but yeah, I'll say 3 or 4 losses this upcoming season. It sounds about right. Which is
could be a huge spring forward. I mean, after that, like talking from our side of things, I know after we had won that initial Bills matchup, like everybody was flying high. Like what everybody thought was the number 1 seed in the division, and then the conference as a whole. Like,
I remember.
Some of the chatter on this side was like crazy. Like, all right, we're Super Bowl, actual contenders now and all this kind of stuff. Definitely a far cry from that still, in my opinion. But yeah, like being able to walk away from that stretch with at least 1 or 2 wins out of those 2, because as you mentioned, the playoffs is going to be a whole nother beast. But being able to steal that initial matchup and kind of see what really worked for you guys and stuff like that, that could propel a pretty huge stretch to wrap up the season. No doubt. And so 14-3, it's probably not too far off considering all the issues we mentioned you guys ran into last year. And you still walked away 13-3. I mean, in my head, hearing it sounds crazy. It always sounds crazy in my head now to think 14-3 in general. That extra game just throws me off so much.
Yeah, I got to be honest too. I think if we did play the bank, if the Hamlin incident didn't happen, I'll be honest with you, man. I didn't like the way the game was going. I think the game played out exactly how it played out in the playoffs. I think it went to the T. I think we probably would have lost that game realistically. It just didn't look good. I felt like they were just doing what they wanted right away. Even on the second drive when Hamlin got hurt, they were marching down the field like right away. So it's like that's kind of why I feel like too Frazier kind of left too. Like that game was just it showed you right there, like he just can't play that soft zone all the time for these teams. Giving them 5-7 yards, the receivers. Cincinnati loves playing that quick out game. Take what the defense gives you. They got playmakers that can get yak after, which is proven. So yeah, man, gonna be interesting. But what was I going to tell you real quick? I was going to say something. I forgot what I was going to tell you about last year. I don't remember.
Calvin Ridley was the name we were forgetting.
Calvin Ridley. Yes. He's back for Jacksonville. Listen, a hell of a player, man. So that's a hell of a weapon, for Lawrence. So yeah, they're not, I think that's a sneaky team right there to watch for. Sneaky team.
Yeah, no doubt.
But yeah, that's what I was going to say. Last year when you guys won, one thing I've learned as a fan, man, watching this team, I've been watching forever. We've had these sneak like wins against the Patriots, and everyone's like, the Bills like, oh, this is our year, and I'm like, no, like calm down, like the team, who we got, right? Like there's going to be some games where you finally get a win against a good team because they were just not whatever, they weren't prepared, or it happens sometimes. And I felt like last year once again, and this happened before, it happened in 2021, I believe it was, and everyone's like, oh, the Patriots, and listen, man, it's how you finish, right? And the Bills have shown to finish strong the last 3 seasons to win the East. Like every year there was some kind of struggle somewhere mid-season with us, and we winded up winning 5 in a row, 4 in a row, 6 in a row. So that down the stretch is where teams, that's where it's made right there, man, going into the playoffs hot. And yeah, last year was weird though. I got to tell you, man, last year, even though we did good down the stretch, we had a lot of tight games, man, a lot of tight games. Even our losses were I think we combined 8 points in all 3 losses. Like none of those, we didn't get blown out any game. There were weird losses. The Minnesota game was weird. Like we shouldn't have lost that game. Yeah, it was an odd game. It was so weird. The game against you guys was a little weird. It just
if it wasn't for the injury, it was probably going to be a loss.
I mean, even at the end, it was like Josh threw an 80-yard pass, right? That technically, if you watch the play, hit Gabe Davis right in the chest, right? Like, but it is what it is. But like, yeah, man, the Dolphins game was a weird game in the heat, right? Like with the clock management, like there was a lot of weird things happening last year, and we still wound up being 13-3. But yeah, I didn't feel like, I felt like we were just out of sorts and we were just winning because we had a better talent, but it wasn't like dominating down the stretch. And I think that's why a lot of people are like rough on their offense, Ken Dorsey. But I don't, one thing I hate when fans complain about, like, and I always tell this to Bills Mafia too. It's like, and I'm sure it's with you guys, every fan base, but I don't like when fans like take this like telescope, and they just zoom in on one particular player or coach, and they're like, that's the reason. It's all him. It's his fault. And I'm like, okay, but you're complaining this whole season that we have no receivers, right? So you can't blame Ken Dorsey. Then blame Brandon Beane for not getting receivers. Like you can't have you can't say he's an awful offensive coordinator, but yeah, we're second in the league in offense, right? So how awful was he? And then we're out there getting players that haven't played football in 4 years to play receiver. It's like, you just got to stop and look. Like I always tell people, take a step back, look at everything. Stop focusing in on one person, right? And people don't do that. A lot of times it was like, quarterback sucks. He's the reason why. It's like, the coach sucks. It's like, bro, step back, look at really what's going on with the team. And yeah, maybe he's made some mistakes, and maybe the quarterback, whoever they're, but look at the offensive line, look at the defensive line, a lot of people don't do that, man. Look at the personnel, right? Ken Dorsey could have been calling great calls, but maybe they weren't running the right routes. Maybe they weren't executing. Maybe we were second in the league in drop passes. I mean, there's so many things that you got to look at except for just blaming one person. I can't stand it. But it's part of, I guess, being a fan, but I used to do that, and I stopped like 2 or 3 years ago. I finally said, man, you know what? You got to go back, watch the film. Because, man, I'm bored. Off season, I tell you, man, if you guys actually go back, watch tape, watch replays, because watching live, you can't stop and go back, but, unless you got DVR, but go back, watch the games, you're going to go, damn, like how Josh, like this dude has no protection, or damn, this dude's dropping the passes over. That's not Ken Dorsey's fault. That's not the offensive coordinator's fault. Like, you know what I mean? So, like, but people, they don't want to see it that way, man, and it's frustrating. It is, but it is what it is, man. Sometimes you can't change fans' way of thinking, and
yeah, that's why they're not in the coaching booth as much as everybody thinks they're a coach. But yeah, I'm with you. I know that all 22 film release that they were doing helped out a lot of people that actually do want to check out the film. But yeah, I remember because this is maybe only like going into the second year that I've actually been like, let me start talking about my team. I think I'm pretty knowledgeable. I enjoy being a fan. But I remember I had to sit back and start thinking, like, what were my question marks during the preseason? A lot of those things don't get magically solved, right? Either the solution is you're going to go out and sign a guy that's going to fix it. Somebody becomes available, you trade for somebody, or somebody gets developed that you didn't expect. And so, yeah, I think a lot of us having that microscope in season is a lot different from remembering, we thought we had 6 holes walking into the season when we were 0-0, and now all of a sudden we're a perfect team, but we got these 3 particular guys that jacked everything else up for us. So I don't know. Can't be helped. As we said, we we'll keep putting the memo out there, and hopefully people will catch on.
Well, last year I had a Jets guy come on one of my podcasts, and forget his name. Nice guy, but he was all on board on Zach Wilson. The one guy that I've been rough on for you guys is Zach.
He's been hard.
How I look at quarterbacks, I'll be honest with you, even if they're bad their rookie season, I always look for like flashes of like greatness or like something that they're like wows you, right? Like, damn, did you see that? Like that dude. And Josh had a terrible rookie year. Go back and watch Josh. Josh year was awful, but he had flashes where you're like, oh shit, I had to, like, whoa, like, you know what I mean? Like, can he get it? Can he get that and fix the other issues that are setting him back? Right. That's what the good quarterbacks do. But I didn't see it in Zach his first year. Right? I saw he was okay. He's all right. And I just felt like he had a bad attitude. I didn't feel like he's a team kind of player. And I told the guy, I'm like, man, I don't know. I feel like he's the guy that might hold you back. And he was like, oh, we're going to win 13. I said, wow, okay. And I said, and you guys had a rough start. Like, you had a tough schedule to start. And I told him, bro, that's a tough schedule, because he wasn't even playing at that time. I think he was hurt last year to begin the season. And I said, Flacco would have to hold down the spot, win those games. And I thought, honestly, I was wrong. I thought Flacco did. I'll be honest with you. I thought Flacco did better. He did better than I thought in the beginning. And then I kind of felt like the players kind of turned their back on Wilson at one point. They were wearing the white shirts or whatever, like Mike White shirts. Like, anytime that happens, same with the Eagles when they did that with their backup quarterback, won a Super Bowl for him. Once the players start turning on you, man, the locker room in a way, like doing things like wearing shirts of it like that, they don't even need to say anything. Like that, it's done. And I felt like the writing was on the wall right there. And then obviously they go out and what are you going to do with him? I mean, you might as well keep him at this point, right? I mean, because I don't know who's going to take him. Somebody might roll the dice on him, but you ain't going to get much. So I think at this point with you guys, I'm guessing you guys are going to maybe hopefully Rodgers can mold him or maybe help him out as he learns from him. I'm curious, what is your guys' plans, or what do you think your plans are for Wilson?
Yeah, so the way I envision it, I think Robert Saleh, he's a clear shot, right? He's not going to really try to do the political coach speak stuff. So, according to him, we're going to allow him to sit back like we should have done his rookie year, be groomed behind an actual veteran. Because, of course, his rookie year, we rolled out a bunch of duds with him and just gave him the job. So, yeah, we're, sit him back behind Aaron Rodgers, let him see how an actual, future Hall of Fame quarterback, someone who's been at the top of the position, goes about his daily business. Let him fine tune some of his skills. Because, I mean, at least in his rookie season, like we said, it was bad, but there was flashes. We've seen the escapability. We've seen him be able to hit the intermediate part of the field with some decent success. We've seen some of the backyard football stuff, at least on broken plays, that worked. But all of his mechanics got shot to, hell last season, and he couldn't even complete passes behind the line of scrimmage. With like screen games done, receivers coming out of the backfield is done because he can't complete a basic pass. So hopefully I would say, which is why I find Hard Knocks to be interesting for us this offseason. The hope was he fades into the background. He works on his skill set, and he can come back his 5th year, something like that, and make a case to be a starter. He doesn't have to be the best in the league, but even getting average play would be a huge increase over what we saw, where he's not even a decent backup option. I still would prefer to have a better number 2 quarterback for us right now, because that's what it's looking like he's going to be. But yeah, that seems what it's like. And to be honest, I think we're really just waiting to try to build up trade value. If you take a look at the situation, it doesn't make a ton of sense, because we're probably going to decline his 5th year option. If we do get Aaron Rodgers for the next year, that goes his 4th year. And so then you're looking at the same situation Aaron Rodgers just put his boy with the Packers in.
Jordan Love.
Yeah, Jordan Love. Same situation he's in, where now we either have to do some kind of, crazy extension, offer a little bit more guaranteed money just to see what he looks like for a full year, or we end up cutting him or letting him go, and we kind of wasted 2 seasons. So I would have liked to see another developmental option on the roster, if nothing else, just so we didn't waste anything. But it is what it is. I'd hate to see us waste another top tier quarterback, so we can at least try to see him on the field and see if he's a salvageable project. And I'm fine with that at this point, because to be honest, 31 other teams in the NFL is probably cutting him after what we saw last year.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you ain't gonna always get them right. I mean, look at Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold. I mean, like there's Josh Rosen. I mean, that draft class alone, like just did not work out for them, like at all. And I kind of feel like Zach Wilson, if he wants to get it right, man, he needs to. You gotta know how to be a leader. Like I kind of feel like that. He hasn't matured, man, like in that part, right? And the one thing I will say, like quarterbacks generally, even if it's not their fault, they'll take the blame. That's the part of being a quarterback. Even if you're not, and I kind of feel like hasn't learned how to be a leader yet and take that. And I don't think the players like that in them. And listen, man, you got to work in the offseason. You got to get with, guys that can help you get better, change your mechanics, whatever you got to do. And if you don't have that in you, man, you'll never get to the top, man. So maybe that's what's maybe with Rodgers being there now, maybe you'll learn and understand that. I don't know, but I'll say if it doesn't work out with you guys wind up cutting him or getting rid of him or trading or whatever. Like he'll probably just be a floater around the league, just like Baker Mayfield's becoming, just like Sam Darnold's becoming. Like, unless he changes his way, because clearly he had something in college, to be a first round pick. And he looked good in college, but he also had question marks coming out of college too.
Yeah, he wasn't my preferred option. I wanted Trey Lance personally. But
so we'll see. I mean, look, there's players like Brock Purdy who we'll see year 2, but you can get lucky on guys like that. I mean, that are floating around there late rounds too. It's not always the first round guys that are going to be the best quarterbacks in the league. There is some talent out there late in rounds. Now, is it a little luck involved? Sure, but we'll see. Bird Purdy, by the way, is interesting. I'm very curious.
Look,
I'm still not sold on him. I think he did a really good job for obviously undrafted, but he has a lot more pressure going into this season and a full season.
Kyle Shanahan looks like a god, because there hasn't been a quarterback that's walked into this offense that hasn't at least looked decent. Like even Trey Lance, we're crapping on him, but he at least looked like he could play average level quarterback.
Right. They got they got a lot of interesting players over there that are playmakers.
Lance, Purdy, picked up Darnold.
Mm-hmm. So we'll see when it comes down, but I am curious. But listen, man, we'll see what you guys do with Rodgers. Is an interesting one too for me, man. I got to be honest with you. Like I know he's a Hall of Famer, no doubt about it. He is an interesting fellow, man. He is. I'm very curious, like I said in the beginning of this podcast, how him and Saleh get along and when things don't go right. Because every NFL team goes through a rough patch and a season, right? There's always going to be a game or two where you just don't play your best football. Things aren't looking too good, and I don't think Rodgers has done a good job with his coaches as far as that goes in Green Bay. Like, I felt like he's a little he's stubborn. He wants his way. You don't get his way, he's going to tell you about it. And I feel like he's kind of thrown his couple of his coaches under the bus. I know he hasn't had the great, and I'm sure that's on Green Bay too. I'm sure the GM didn't help him, didn't get him weapons, or whatever happened over there. But it's going to be interesting, man. I just feel like New York's a different beast, man, when it comes to media. And he is a fiery coach, man. Saleh is a fiery guy. So, and I don't just so curious when things don't go smoothly, how that relationship will be. You know what I mean? Now, I know his your off OC is Rodgers' old OC, correct? So that's good. At least, they're on the same page as what Rodgers likes. So I don't think there'll be any back and forth. But also, Rodgers likes his veteran receivers. You guys brought in Randall Cobb. I'm curious how he gets along with the younger guys too. That's another thing. Like, he has a tough time with the younger guys. He gets a little agitated. So very curious how this works out with Rodgers. It is very interesting. That's why you guys made a Hard Knocks. I'm telling you, very interesting. Very interesting year.
I thought we were going to make Hard Knocks regardless, just because Zach Wilson was still on the roster, and they want to see, like, is this a story of him being, buried further into the ground, or can he rise up? But yeah, Robert Saleh versus versus Aaron Rodgers doesn't concern me so much as him and Nathaniel Hackett per se. Only because we've seen pretty much the worst of the worst quarterback play that you can get with a guy like Zach Wilson. We didn't see Robert Saleh sway in terms of throwing him under the bus, crapping on the offense or anything like that. He really kind of smoothed everything over as best he could and handled it really well. But I do know there were some, and these were rumors as far as I can understand it, but some mishaps between Hackett and Rodgers before, even though, he claims there's a lot of love there and stuff, where Nathaniel Hackett didn't like the fact that Aaron Rodgers kind of had his lay of the land with whatever he wanted to do per se with the offense to a certain degree. And then, of course, like a lot of the input and stuff that was going on there. So from the standpoint of Nathaniel Hackett's also trying to rebuild back up his credibility as a coach. And then having a guy like Aaron Rodgers in that's definitely free spoken, but he's at that point in his career after everything he's done as well, where you don't want it to be, he's almost like a coach on the field as well. So it can come into a situation where it's like, Aaron Rodgers' word versus Nathaniel Hackett's word, which it should be the coach at the top of the totem pole. But there's already been some things during the OTAs where there may be some toes getting stepped on, although it hasn't been a blown up issue. We'll kind of see if that becomes more of a problem with like the extra Hard Knock lights spotlight.
Yeah, that's gonna be it. I know Rodgers is against it from what I heard, but he's like, it is what it is. Right, it's what the NFL wants, and the NFL wants it. It's going to happen. So I'm curious how he's going to be on that show. If it's going to be like plain Jane, like not say much, or is he going to actually let the cameras kind of like in on Aaron Rodgers? I'm very curious how that goes.
I think we'll probably see more than we expect. He's been rejuvenated, it seems, since being in New York with just kind of everything going on. So maybe that fresh environment and everything will continue to rub off on him, and we'll kind of see like a much younger version of him personality wise. But we'll see how that pans out.
And you expect Breece Hall, by the way, back week 1, you think, or you think he's being optimistic?
Yeah. So, I mean, okay, so there's been a few definitely good signals. I know, like 2.5 months ago or so, he was already running like 22 miles per hour on the treadmill. So I wasn't expecting him to be able to build up that much speed so quickly. I do think he'll be ready for week 1. I'm pretty confident in saying it's going to be a pure mentality thing for him. I think his body is kind of already in a place where he needs it to be, as much as anybody can ask in under a year from an ACL. And I think mentally it's just going to be him kind of second guessing, can I plant my foot the way I want to and accelerate and, break through a couple of these tackles, stuff like that. So it'll probably be a situation where, post game our first week, if he has a decent game, we hear him say like, I just needed that first hit to, say, all right, I'm good. And then things take off. So
yeah, there's a mental and physical side of this, man. Especially when you guys never had it happen before. You know what I mean? So I understand that part. And I will say the good thing about it, he's an offensive player. So from what I heard, it's tougher for defensive players to come back from it because you don't know when like on defense, you're not really expecting to cut. You're kind of you're going against the offense, and he's the one that's basically cutting, right? Like you don't know. So you don't have time to plant. Yeah, you're going on him. Offensively, in your mind, you're going to stop. You're going to cut. So you kind of can brace yourself or whatever. So I know they've said it's offensively, it's a little easier to come back from ACL than defense. I think that's why like Trey was a little bit rough coming back, but also mental. I'm telling you, a lot mental, man. Because mentally, he's, it's tough, man. It is, and not only that, coming back and you're not. Maybe in his head, you're not really doing what you think you can do physically. And then it starts to get on you. Think of like Trey last year, man, too. On his interviews, you could kind of see it, hear it in his voice. He just wasn't happy with him. So and maybe, that's because physically he just wasn't 100 like what he was, and that probably mentally kind of hits you up. You know what I mean? So we'll see what happens on the mental side because a lot of it's mental too. So will Breece Hall bounce back, mentally as well right away, or will it take him a couple games to kind of like, understand, things are going to be all right?
I definitely remember kind of going through sports when I was going through like the high school, college fields, when like a big injury hit. Mentally, it's kind of like two different bridges you have to cross. One is just the confidence issue and your body being able to do what it does again. And then the second one is kind of like branching off from the physical stuff that's happening on the field. So like with the NFL, everybody for the most part athletically is elite compared to like the general populace, right? So there's very minor differences that separate somebody that looks average from somebody that looks elite. Minus your exceptions like, the Tyreek Hills of the world and stuff like that. So I'll be interested to see what happens when like somebody can chase him down from behind that maybe wouldn't have been able to chase him down last year and kind of how he responds to stuff like that. Cause I think that'll be the biggest key indicator. Cause then you also have some of those guys that like they just shut down mentally after something like that when they can't, perform similarly the way they were doing before. It just completely like, messes up the wires in their brain and, they start trying to, I feel like almost.
You start thinking more. You start thinking like, more. Yeah. Like
secondary thoughts.
Second guessing. Yeah. Second guessing what you're going to do. And I agree with that, man. I broke my ankle playing I was really back in the day, man. I broke my ankle and mentally, man, I just never was. I changed everything about my game, like changed. And it wasn't because I wanted to, just because mentally it just.
The Derrick Rose effect.
It was just, like I just couldn't. I don't know what it was, like mentally, I didn't. It was always in my brain, I can't do that. Like, you know what I mean? But I probably could have, but just mentally, I didn't want to. Like, it's weird, but it's true. But like you said, man, these guys are, super athletes, man. I'm not an NFL guy. You know what I mean? These guys have, I also don't have trainers working with me, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So big difference with these guys. But still, some of these guys, they, like you said, though, there is some guys that, that's why, listen, real quick, the NFL average player is like 3 years or something, 3.5. Like these guys, man, they get hurt. Sometimes look at Shane Ray. We're just talking. Yeah, you asked me about Shane Ray. He's been out of the league 4 years. He just mentally, he got a little out of a bat. He also got into like a dark place. He's talked about it because and imagine it's a wrist injury. It wasn't even like anything, you know what I mean? But it mentally messed him up. Yeah. And then he retired. Like, it's craziness. You're talking about a guy who's a first round pick, got his wrist hurt and because he went through surgery again and got it hurt again, he just mentally, I think it started wearing on him and that was it. So yeah, it can happen, man. It's tough sport, man.
Yeah, I think a lot of us be forgetting that they're going out here and sacrificing their bodies immediately after
Dude.
coming back from a huge injury.
It's like I give guys like Adrian Peterson to his ACL had 2,200 something crazy yards like the next season. Like, and in week one, boom, it's rare though. I gotta say, like that stuff though, those kind of super freak athletes, there's a few, Frank Gore, like those kind of, but there's not a lot of them, bro. Willis McGahee back in the day, if y'all remember him, probably the most disgusting leg injury you'll ever see. And he was pretty damn good, right? Coming into in the NFL, he had a decent career. So there is players that can bounce back from really gruesome, and then there's some players that can't, man. You know what I mean? We'll see what happens, man. ACLs, that sucks, man. I feel bad for leg injuries are one of the worst, man, in the NFL. It is really tough to bounce back from it. Really.
I hate seeing the major injuries for the running backs because I feel for the position with how they've been undervalued and kind of used and abused, tossed to the side like the moment you can. So
look at Gurley, by the way, too. Gurley was never. Was it?
Never the same. He immediately turned into like a short yardage back, and that was
crazy. Out of the league. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. So it's tough. And that was probably, who knows, mental, physical. I mean, it's crazy to me that the Rams kind of saw that though. Because the Rams got rid of him kind of quick, man. They didn't stick with him too long. They were like, I think they probably knew, like, mentally he wasn't there and just moved on. But it's crazy.
Played, what was it? He already was in the league for like 3 years before that injury.
Got a huge contract. I think he got the contract. And then he got the injury, and that was it. I think he played 1 year. He came back, and I think they traded him right after that year. And he just was never the same, bro. He can never be the Gurley that he was, right? Now you got Saquon Barkley. He's another guy, got hurt and had a bounce back year last year. Really good, did well, and he's trying to get a contract now. But as you can see, though, the Giants paying running backs, bro, I always tell people, I have a tough time with it, man. Like, and I get it. Their running backs are like, you need a good running back, but they have a shelf life, man. They're not all of them are like AP, right? And look what happened to Dallas. Elliott got paid, and he just fell off, man. Todd Gurley, he got hurt, done. I mean, there's plenty of examples to go down the list of running backs that that's why you draft them, use them for 4 or 5 years, bro. And it's such a risk paying them after that. And it sucks. Like, I look at Dalvin Cook, cut, boom. And Dalvin Cook's still good, but I think teams just they'd rather go through the draft, use up their 4 or 5 years. I know it's a crappy thing to do, but they don't have a good shelf life, man. They just don't.
It makes sense. Why pay this guy $7 million a year? He still has all of the same injury risk, if not higher, because he's older. Right. And I can use that same money, go get a more important position, or I can flip that and go get 2 or 3 younger guys who's probably still going to make less than your entire first year. Like, it sucks. I really hate it for them, but I mean, it's kind of what you're looking at. You're gonna have to play. You'll have to become one of those guys that can do it all. You can block very well. You can run extremely efficient. You can not only catch passes out of the backfield, but you can line up as like a slot guy. Like, if you're not universally talented to be able to do all of those kind of things, you're hard pressed to find a secondary contract that's going to be worth much to you. Because at this point, a lot of people are taking value deals, like Nick Chubb, Hunt, those kind of contracts. I don't think we'll be seeing those too often anymore.
There is, speaking of running back, real quick, I know we're on here a little bit, but there is a guy that I would love the Bills to pick up. I don't think they're going to do it, and I think it's a mistake. Who's still a free agent would be Kareem Hunt. Hunt, still a free agent, like I said, and I think you can get him on a reasonable deal. And if I'm Buffalo, you only got Damon here, so on 1 year deal. He's cut up, by the way. They can cut him and really not it's not going to be a lot of money wasted, I think, on the dead cap. Listen, man. If you don't get D-Hop, I roll the dice on Hunt. You got yourself a solid 1-2 punch in Cook and Hunt. There's your short yardage back, a guy that can stay healthy, a guy that still has good speed. You know what he's about. You get him on here in like a 2-year deal, and you get rid of Harris and you get rid of the other one, and then boom, you got that. Boom, there it is. That's it. You don't have to spend big money on Dalvin Cook, right? Like, but they're not. I don't think they're going to do it, but I would. Like, there's moves that I would definitely like. Hunt is very intriguing for me. A guy that still has game. His off-field stuff, that was years ago. He's been pretty good as far as that goes. So I wouldn't even be concerned about that. And like I'm telling you, if you go look at the free agency, there's a ton of decent players out there still. Even the receiver, you got Jarvis Landry, who would not be a bad pickup for us. I don't think they're going to do it because I think he has a little history with Buffalo. But yeah, Hunt is interesting to me, but I don't think they're going to do it. But I would love that pickup. But and you can do it on a reasonable deal. I think he'd be a reasonable price player. I don't think he's asking probably big bucks. You know what I mean? But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I figured he's still hanging around is because he probably won't get picked up until the latter parts of preseason. Try to play a game or two, be relatively fresh for the regular season. He's probably looking at like a $4.5 million contract or something like that on a 1-year deal.
I do it. I would do it. I would do it in a heartbeat, man. I'm telling you, man, you're really rolling the dice on a guy like Harris that's been hurt most of his career. Like I said, if when healthy, good player, really good player, no problem. But man, really, you want to really roll the dice there, or you want to spend a little and get a guy that's been proven, right? Like that can stay healthy for the most part. You don't have to worry about that. Younger player too. Hunt's still young. And Cook, I like Cook, but he's a little light in the weight department. He's still going into his second year. It's a lot of pressure on him to be the number one back. Take a lot of the snaps. So I don't know, man. And also too, you got to remember too, Cook wasn't really good last year in pass protection. Devin Singletary was actually very underrated. He was really good at pass protection. I'll miss Devin Singletary, by the way. Very underrated in my opinion. Good player, man. Just didn't get a lot of runs. Never over 200. His average per career, I think, was 4.6, 4.7. Not bad at all. Good dude. Yeah.
They had too many higher expectations for what that offense was doing and what he was.
Gotta have protection. Yeah, you gotta have run blocking too, man. You guys blowing up your offensive line. I don't care who you got back there. I mean, honestly, you would have to have Derrick Henry to get you some positive yards on a bad offensive line. I mean, and realistically, you know what I mean? And how many Derrick Henrys are there? One. So, you know what I mean? Like, so, right. He's different, right? He doesn't need a great offensive line. Like, he needs an average offensive line, and he can make them look pretty damn good, right? So, yeah, man, Kareem Hunt, though, like I said, man, he's a different kind of back too. He's a physical back. You've seen what he can do in Cleveland. You saw what he could do in the Chiefs. Like he is a good player. For that price, for that amount, I would definitely be willing to do that, and I would move on from Harris. I mean, why risk it through the season? I mean, but they're not going to do it. I wish they would.
They may be forced to. You never know. Preseason comes up. Maybe Damian ends up going through some more, injury drama again, and they're looking at the list. I mean, I know the conversation was the same on our side. Obviously, with Breece Hall, question marks about week 1. A lot of people wanted a more shorthand number 2. And I don't know why. Okay, I know why the stats look pretty with Dalvin Cook, 1,100 yards, 6 to 8 touchdowns, I think almost every season, the last 4 years. Like all of that looks great. But then I know the other side of the conversation is from an efficiency standpoint. He's been on a downward trend for a while. So, he runs hard, big plays, all of that good stuff. But he's not the best in terms of maximizing what an offense can do. And he's probably not going to be a volume guy within our offense anyways, or what any other team is asking him to do. So I don't know. I think his market is probably going to be a little bit more overhyped than what he expects.
And he's asking for some pretty penny. He's asking for a bag, man. And I'm not willing to give up 9. I'm sorry. Like I'm not. And by the way, our GM, he's not that he's a cheap GM, but he's he doesn't like. It takes him a minute to. It takes a very special player for him to really open up that checkbook, like a Von Miller type. Like even the Von was a surprise because of his age, but I understood because Von Miller brought more than just his like field, his play on the field, brought leadership to the locker room. Like he brings a lot more than just on the field stuff, right? And I kind of feel like that's why he also signed Von. He paid Von. It's good for the young players like a Rousseau, the AJ up, and like these guys that like just look at learn from this guy. So I think that's why they kind of overpaid for him, which really not. I mean, the other guy, Chandler Jones or whatever, got paid just about the same, and he's roughly the same age. So, but yeah, once in a while he'll pull the trigger and make a signing like that. But it's like I said, like the D-Hop thing. I think he wants D-Hop, but I just don't think he likes the money, and he's not gonna. Our GM is not like a Cleveland Browns GM. He's not gonna open the books and set your team back. Like that's how teams like the Browns and all these other stupid teams that go out and just spend big money and nothing, and especially when they don't win. Like it's like the Rams, for instance. They at least they won a Super Bowl. They could say, "Hey, yeah, we went all in, but at least it happened." And I'll respect that. I'll say, "Hey, guys suck now, right?" But at least you got a Super Bowl. At least you got a ring. Like I'll be honest with you, if we did it and we got a ring, it would suck years to go after that. But at least I could finally say, damn, the Bills finally got a Super Bowl. Okay, cool. Like now we're gonna suck for 15 more years, right?
Yeah, man.
At least but if it doesn't happen, then you're set back, like and then you're like, you're in a hole, and many teams have gotten into that hole, man, and I don't want to be one of them. So I think that's what Brandon Beane.
The hell we've been living in for a decade. I'm so glad we had switched over to Joe Douglas because
and that dude, I'm gonna tell you, man, that dude is a good GM. So far, I love his moves, love his drafts. The Rodgers thing's interesting. We'll see how that works out. That is interesting to me. But yeah, I think he had no choice. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, a lot of us think it was a Woody Johnson, not so much as an ask as a dictation. Get it done. It's Aaron Rodgers or your job.
Right. So yeah, I don't blame him. You know what I mean? So but yeah, man. So it's gonna be a fun year, bro. That's all I can say. It's gonna be an interesting, fun season in AFC East, man.
Yeah, no doubt. I think it'll be the way it's shaping up. It looks like it'll be a race down to the final weeks for sure. So we'll see how that plays out. It's more so fun in a way, actually. Recently, having all of at least the majority of us, minus the Patriots, having these solid teams, because at least now it makes the division a lot more interesting. I think the conversations around who can actually be legit, like playoff contenders and reach the Super Bowl and stuff. I think you can take those conversations a little bit more seriously after all of our division, after the teams in our divisions play each other, because we're all looked at as one of the better teams within our conferences after you look at the Chiefs. So yeah, we'll see. It'll be some fun conversations to revisit by the time the season's wrapping up.
Yeah, definitely, man. Like I said, now down the stretch, that's where it counts, man. So we'll see what teams are made of. Last 5-6 games, and obviously watch for injuries. Injuries are huge too. Like that hurt us last year. Who could stay healthy? Like some team, sometimes it's a little bit of luck too, man. We just had some. It was funny because last season we had that terrible luck with injuries, but prior to that, like years before that, we were actually a really healthy team. Like we didn't have a lot of injuries, and then boom, the year we're supposed to go to the Super Bowl of the year, I'm telling you, things are weird like that. Like I said, so the Bills are projected to go Super Bowl last year, and then just everything that could have went wrong, and that's why I open up the excuse box a little bit and say, like you kind of gotta understand what they were like. Man, dude, you know what I mean? Like that offseason was rough, and then the regular, it was like, what could go? What else? At that point, I'm like, what else could go wrong here? Like everything. It just seemed like everything, and a lot. It was tough. So this season, I just gotta hope injuries, we stay healthy, no weird off-season crap, which knock on wood, nothing's bad just happened this off-season. Regular season can go on, and Vaughn can come back. And I mean, think about it. We signed Vaughn, big deal, big contract, boom, ACL. I mean, it's just like, we just couldn't win. Like, we couldn't, nothing went right. It's like everything went wrong that could go wrong. I mean, the Hamlin thing was wild. Like, it was like, it was one thing after another last year, man. And I'll say it again. I don't know if any team, even in any sport, has gone through what we went through. It's just wild. So I just don't want to have that happen again, man.
Yeah, no doubt. But yeah, it's been dope talking to you, my man. We'll see if we can make this for sure. I don't know how consistent can be playing twice a year, but we'll definitely try to link up for some more stuff, no doubt.
Oh, yeah.
After some regular season stuff happens. Appreciate you guys in the chat. It's been dope seeing some of the comments, some of the questions that came up. I linked some of Tommy from Mafia Sports Reports links in the description, so you guys can go check him out on his channel. I think I had your Twitter on there. Go hit up my man. Dope. Whether we should be paying attention to them anyways, guys. He's in our division.
By the way, I do want to say real quick, I do have a Saturday show. I don't know what time we're going to do it this year, but we have like a AFC shakedown. So I have a Patriots content creators for Sports Dynasty podcast. I got a new guy coming from the Jets who does the Jets. I forget the name offhand, but he's coming on this year because we didn't. The thing was, man, I could never find a Jets content creator. So I had a Dolphins guy, I had the Patriots guy, obviously me for the Bills, and we do it every Saturday, and we can never find a Jets guy. And we finally found one this season. Hopefully it goes smooth and he can, he's there. But yeah, AFC Shakedown. Watch for that on Saturdays. It'll be every weekend. And we just go over all the matchups for that weekend of our teams, and everyone gets their chance. It's kind of like a round table. So that's fun, man. And like I said, if the Jets guy can't show up one weekend, I'll hit you up and maybe you guys can go on. Because what we do, just real quick, guys, it's not always on my channel. So we rotate. So like one week it'll be on my channel. The next week it'll be on the Dolphins channel. The next week it'll be on the Patriots guy and the Jets guy. So we all get a crack each week. So everybody gets to host. And they're the host that weekend. So it's a fun show. It's different. You can hear, everyone's thoughts on their team week to week to week. And we start September, the week before the regular season kickoff. So look for that. That should be fun. If you guys are Jets fans, you'll want to tune in, and hear what your guy has to say about the Jets, man.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm surprised. It's funny because I feel like our community probably has like the most amount of guys trying to like pump out content on our team. But yeah, it shouldn't be any shortage of guys. Hopefully that goes very well. I know I'll be looking out for it for sure.
It's BX Sports Jedi Network. I don't know if you ever heard of that guy.
I've heard of that one. Yeah.
yeah. So BX Sports, he does everything, but he's a Jets guy.
Okay.
And so he's the guy I'm having this year. But you're more than welcome if we'll stay in contact if you want to join, even if you want to come on with him, and just because, like I said, I don't care. I don't care who comes on. It'll be fun, and we can go on your channel too as well. So we'll talk off air about that. You're more than welcome to do it if free on Saturdays, and it's fun, man. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely, no doubt. We'll try to piece something together for it. Again, appreciate all of you guys. All of his links are in the description to go check him out, and we'll catch you guys again. Peace.
Later. Go Bills.